Hello, friends. It's Maya Lila de Vento. I was just invited to share the story of my name, my backstory of my spiritual name, which I've told the story a million times, but I don't know if I've ever recorded it. And I've thought about writing a book because I've had numerous friends over the years that had changed their names, and they inspired me, or I inspired other, mostly women. I know a few men who have changed their names, but in my life it's been a lot of women. I remember the very first time I was exposed to somebody with a spiritual name. I grew up in Southern California with parents who were school teachers, very Catholic, just kind of normal, run of the mill, matrixy upbringing, with a little bit of sprinkling of holistic medicine on my mom's side. And so I was raised to be myself and to be authentic and to be creative, but stay safe. Don't go too far out of the lines. Get a good job, have insurance, go to college to get these things. There wasn't much risk taking in my family, and there wasn't much dream following in my family. So I was working at an anthropology store. Anthropology is an amazing women's clothing store and artifacts around the world. And it was a beautiful place. And I was working at the location in Santa Monica, California. And they also had an assortment of amazing books. And I'm like 22, 23 at the time. And I remember picking up this book called The Invitation by Oriah Mountain Dreamer. And I was a huge reader as a kid. I was a total bookworm. My mom taught me to read at age 2. And that was kind of my coping mechanism for a lot of things, was just reading books. And so when I saw the author's name, Oriah Mountain Dreamer, I was like, ugh, like that's flaky. What is this name? Who is this lady? Like a lot of judgment. And I read the book. The book is amazing. It's based around her poem, The Invitation, which is basically about being fully alive as your true self. An invitation to do that. That was my first memory of a spiritual name. And she describes in the book that she was given the name in a dream, if I remember correctly, and this is like 20 plus years ago, by a council of grandmothers that would visit her in her dreams, like 13 grandmothers. And again, this was weird for me. I was like, oh, I don't know about this lady. I don't know about this name. I don't know about this story. But I was curious. I'm insanely curious, always have been. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then over the years of living in Los Angeles, I eventually met women who I found out later were using spiritual names. I thought that was their given name. So again, another kind of interesting, like, oh, that's interesting. And then I got involved in the Bhakti yoga scene, and I ended up living in an ashram in Italy. I was going to say Ireland, but that's where my dad was born. But I went to an ashram in Italy, ended up there synchronistically, magic, definitely guided there by Paramahansa Yogananda. And at this point, I had been meditating, I'd been studying various spiritual paths, doing yoga for years. So the whole spiritual name thing, I was involved in the Kundalini yoga crowd, which a lot of them had names that had been given to them, spiritual names. So at this point, the weirdness had worn off. So I go to this ashram, Ananda Assisi, beautiful place, beautiful people. I go there, and a lot of the people there had spiritual names that were given to them by Swami Kriyananda. So my name story, my birth name was Michelle, and my mother wanted to name me, oh sorry, let me turn off my things. My mother wanted to name me Heather, and my father gave me the name Michelle while she was passed out after cesarean section because I was a breech. And so my name was Michelle, but I never resonated with it. I hated the Beatles song, Michelle, my belle. And people would always ask me, oh, what's your nickname? What's your nickname? Or do you have any other names? Or they would call me Melissa or things like this. I just always had a weird relationship, a strange relationship with my name. And I didn't have any nicknames, so it's just Michelle. I had one friend who called me Shell's Bells, but otherwise I was just Michelle. And again, never fully resonated. And the meaning of the name Michelle, which is based on Michael, is a question, which I was like, what kind of meaning is a question? Like a meaning should be a meaning, not a question. But the name Michelle means who is like God? Question mark. So I never really felt my name. And so at this ashram, all these people are given names. And I was in meditation one day, and I was like, well, okay, I don't feel like my true name is Michelle. And I don't want some dude giving me a name. I never took discipleship at Ananda Assisi. I didn't feel called to that lineage of gurus. I'm not a guru person. Much too headstrong and stubborn and self-leading to follow any kind of gurus. I have amazing relationships with these spiritual guides, Babaji and Paramahansa Yogananda, but no gurus for me. So yeah, I was like, I don't want some other random guy other than my father giving me a name again. And one day I was in an olive tree. I lived at this beautiful grove of olive trees, and I was grieving. I was crying over a relationship that had ended years prior, and it was a massive heartbreak for me. It kind of launched me on my spiritual journey. So I'm in this olive tree, just crying over heartbreak and loss and, crying, grieving. And I'm in the midst of this pain because I was suffering. I was having heart pain of feeling, I guess, unwanted, unloved, like I'd messed something up, like I'd missed this great opportunity for an amazing relationship with this person that I'd loved very deeply. And all of a sudden, in the midst of this heartache and crying, the name or the word Maya, I didn't hear it with my physical ears, but it's like it dropped into my head, Maya. And Maya is the Sanskrit word for the illusion of this reality, for also delusion, like the ignorance and the veil of forgetting that falls on humans when they become human. And so in that moment of Maya coming into my mind, coming into my brain and my body, all of the suffering disappeared. Like I was, all the pain, all the heartache was gone. I stopped crying immediately because I had this realization, remembrance, knowing in my body, oh, like no love is lost. It's all one. You are one with this person for all of eternity because your souls are one, and everything's one. There's no separation. Separation is an illusion, which I'd heard over the years studying Buddhism and Hinduism and all this, but I'd never really fully felt it in my body the way I did when the word Maya dropped in. So I had this realization in that moment that I feel like the tree gifted me, the olive tree, because I have a very deep connection with olive trees. And at the same time, I realized that's my name. And I had known one Maya in my life, this girl when I was in high school that I really admired. She was like so powerful and just like an awesome, she reminds me, she looked kind of like Anthony Kiedis, and she's from New York and just very strong in herself. So anyways, when Maya arrived in my head, I was like, oh, this is my name. So I was elated to have had this realization, to have my suffering end out of nowhere, and to now have my own spiritual name that had come to me and through me, not from somebody else, not from another human. Which I understand people can channel the divine and stuff, but I was just like, that doesn't fit for me. Like I need my stuff to come from within myself. So I walked to the ashram because I was on kitchen duty. And two of my, the kitchen was full of friends of mine. And two of them one was my friend and teacher, Namasya, and she was a spiritual teacher at Ananda. So when you became a volunteer there, you would have weekly meetings to learn about Sanskrit and the teachings and the gurus and just kind of spiritual study group. And then my friend Luigi was also there, and I'd met Luigi in Milan a few months prior at a Dalai Lama event, and then he had moved also to this ashram with me. So I tell them, I say, guys, I had this amazing experience. I was in an olive tree crying, and this name appeared, and all my suffering was gone, and this is my name. It's Maya. So it was a mixed, it wasn't kind of the reception that I was expecting, because for me, Maya is a game, and it's not this heaviness of delusion and ignorance. It's the game of this magical reality that we get to exist in and we get to play in as a human, but as a fractal piece of God that has forgotten itself. And Alan Watts has always been like my biggest hero. And he actually has a clip, which I didn't realize till years later, and I might have heard it subconsciously at some point, up to that point, but he has a clip where he talks about Maya and Lila in the same clip. And so when I found that later, I was like, but okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. So I'm not the greatest storyteller because my mind goes everywhere. So, okay. So I tell them my name is Maya. And Namaste is like, well, Maya is kind of dark and heavy, again, in their belief system. And she said in this ashram, in this lineage, people, when they get a spiritual name, they have a dark component and a light component. And so there's both darkness and light, because that's humans are darkness and light. This physical reality is darkness and light, the polarity, the contrast. So I was kind of like, okay, well, like what? Like what would you recommend as the light word? And I was pretty flippant about it. I was not looking actually for her input or suggestions at all. And humility is not my strongest trait. So she says, well, how about Lila? And this blew my mind, because I had spent 9 months prior to coming to Italy and living at this ashram. I had spent in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, and I had a dear friend and one of my first, actually, I guess my first spiritual mentor, who kicked my ass, called me out on all of my unconscious shit. And yeah, we did a lot of growing together. It was an interesting relationship. And he and I, those months in Argentina when we were working together, living together, doing all this stuff, our main theme was Lila. He was a Kundalini yoga instructor, also versed in spiritual studies and Sanskrit, and a musician. And so Lila means divine play. And it's also kind of improvisation. And Lila is like this flow that you can get into as a musician, as an artist, of having life force energy flowing through you in a creative manner. So that was our theme word. So when she said Lila, I was like, okay, yes, you're correct. Like, my name is actually Maya Lila, because Maya is, again, the illusion of this reality, the game, and Lila is divine play. And so it's basically my belief system, my mantra. And when I interpret the words for myself, for me it means the game of God playing human, because that's what I believe we all are, is we're God playing human. We've just forgotten, and we're our own flavor of divinity. And the point is to remember while you're in the body and enjoy it as much as you can, love as much as you can. So I say, Maya Lila, oh my God. And then Luigi goes, well, and he's like, and he's Italian. Namasio is German, I think. But Luigi's like, you should not have that as your name, because in Italian, Maya Lila means little pig. And again, it was so fascinating to have this profound, deeply moving realization and kind of initiation for myself, be confronted by various people in the world around me. And so when he said that, I was like, I don't care. Like, I don't give a fuck if it means little pig. I really do not care. And my name is Maya Lila. And I try to enunciate, especially with Italians, Maya Lila, not Maya Lina. And there's a tangent I can go, but I will stay focused. So later that day, I shared the news with another one of my mentors, Adananda Sisi. And I remember she was so dismissive, and she said to me, oh, you'll change it back eventually, because she was one of the few people at Ananda that never took on a spiritual name, because her name has meaning for her. And she's seen so many people over the years come through Ananda and change their names and take vows of devotees, and then after a year or two kind of go back to their old life, abandon the name, abandon the path. And so when I told her that my spiritual name was Maya Lila, yeah, she was like, oh, you'll change it back. And again, so dismissive and flippant, and not at all what I was expecting. And this was like a series of initiations of me coming into my power, coming into my truth, my authenticity, and not letting other people's opinions stop me from doing what I felt was true for myself. So when she said that, I was like, wait, maybe. Like, I don't know the future. Maybe I will keep this name for 5 years, 7 years, maybe I'll change it back someday. Like, I can't know that, but I don't think so. Like, it feels true in my body. And again, it wasn't something that somebody else gave to me, and it wasn't something that I took on because of peer pressure or because of groupthink. It's because it came to me, through me, and with the assistance of Namasya, was this kind of perfect embodiment of who I am and what I live in my life and always have lived. Because I've always looked at life as a game and not a battle. And I've had this conversation, argument over the years with many people, spiritual teachers included. They're like, life is a battle of dark and light and good and bad. I'm like, it's not. It's not. It's a game, I promise you. It's all light. It's all love. Darkness is made of love as much as the light, which is one of my favorite quotes from Martha Beck. So that was so the name came to me in 2012, September of 2012. I didn't actually start using the name until 2013 when I had another awakening experience, which I won't go into now. But I deeply realized my terror of my own power and being a woman, really. And it was like this very intense womb opening, awakening, breaking pain. Like I realized how much pain was in my womb and how much terror there was of me being in my authentic power. And I knew like, now I need to become Maya Lila. And so from that point on, that was March 18th of 2013, I became Maya Lila. And at the time I cut off all my hair, and it was definitely this coming closer to my true self. So from 2013 to 2018, so after Italy, in May of 2013, I moved back to the United States because my father and my grandmother had passed and the family was gathering. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go back to the States now. And when I got back, I started introducing myself to my family, to my old friends as Maya Lila. And I'm like, this is my name now. And of course, family, especially the older family members who have no connection to yoga or Sanskrit or spirituality, they had a hard time, and I'm sure there was some derision, but at this point I was like, I don't give a fuck, like this is my name. So it didn't bother me at all by now because I had initiated myself into the name. But it's interesting looking back. There are people from that point in 2013 that have only ever known me as Maya Lila. Like everybody that I met after that point has only ever known me as Maya Lila. And then people before that point knew me also as Michelle. And it's this interesting kind of like splitting of my life, of my timelines. So I used the name Maya Lila from that point forward. And my legal name was still Michelle Catherine Perry. And I felt this rift, this disconnect between what I felt was my true name. And I also changed my last name because when Maya Lila came in, I was like, okay, am I Maya Lila Perry? Do I keep my dad's adopted last name, which doesn't even come through my lineage? Plus the whole thing about taking your patrilinear, I can't talk right now, patrilinear last name rather than your matrilinear last name, which makes a lot more sense because you know who your mother is. There's no doubts there. And you don't always know who your father is. But after a lot of that process for the last name, that was more of like it took more time, meditation, listening, asking, experimenting. But I finally, through quite a bit of meditation and kind of feeling out, I came to Vento, which is kind of Italian. It's actually grammatically incorrect, which I kind of love. Because all language is made up, all rules are made up in all languages. Every word ever made was fucking invented and made up by somebody. All grammatical rules were fucking made up by somebody. In this case, Dante Alighieri, I guess. But and there are tons of irregular. There's irregular shit in every language. So why can't we just make up shit? We can. That's the thing. It's a rhetorical question. So divento, when you put it together, it's a verb, diventare, which means to become. But when you separate it, it's di vento, which is of the wind. And grammatically correct would be del vento, which is of the wind. But I liked that wordplay of the wind. And if you know about Ramtha, I don't know if it's the White Book or it's just called Ramtha, but it's an amazing book. And he talks about the wind. And I used to talk to the wind as a child. I've always felt strongly connected to the wind. So becoming like the wind, becoming more like spirit, that felt, again, true for me. And so I started using this name, but on my name I went by in my Facebook profile and whatever was this name, but my legal name was still my birth name. And so whenever I made a doctor's appointment, whenever I had to do banking stuff or taxes, whenever I got out my credit card to pay at a restaurant, And, you give your card to your friends, and then people be like, who's Michelle Perry? Like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, that's my birth name. And they'd be like, what? So it just like was this disintegration. It felt like I wasn't complete and whole in who I am. So finally in 2018, I became pregnant. Well, 2017, I became pregnant with my second daughter, River. And I decided I want to change my name legally before she's born, because I want my true name on her birth certificate. And so I went through the process in Oregon. In California, the state of California, it's like $600 to change your name legally. In the state of Hawaii, it's $80, or it was a while ago. And in Oregon, when I got it changed, it was $111. So I was like, okay, $111, perfect. So changed the name legally, and then did the process of changing everything else legally, my credit card, my banking, taxes, all that, to Social Security. So once that process was complete, and then my daughter was born, and she has the last name Vento. Actually, Shasta has the last name Vento. River does not. River has her father's, but we're probably going to change that legally eventually. But having my identity be cohesive to my truth felt so amazing, and it still feels amazing. And this is now 7 years after that. And again, will I ever change my name back? Maybe. I don't fucking know. But I feel pretty solid and secure and grounded in this name, which I love. And people always think it's Hawaiian. A lot of people comment it. Most of the time I will give a little description of what it means. It's a spiritual name and my legal name if they ask, which sometimes they do. But even just saying it for me is a transmission. It's a transmission of consciousness, and it's a transmission of truth. And Sanskrit is one of the world's last remaining root languages. I don't remember what the difference is, but it's got some special qualities. I don't remember. You can Google it, like Sanskrit root language or something like that, original language. So that's the story of my name change. And yeah. And I think, sometimes people, another piece I will add that I always loved. There's a book called Mutant Message from Down Under, I believe. And it was written by a woman who was maybe British, and she was a nurse, and she went to Australia, and she kind of got kidnapped by Aborigines people. And there are people that say that it's a lie that she made up, that this is a story that she fabricated because it has some crazy stuff in it. But she maintains, no, this actually happened to me, as far as I know. But in the book, she talks about how in the Aboriginal tribes, and also this happens, I believe, in places in Africa, your name will change over time depending on the season of life you're in, depending on your main focus or purpose in the world, depending on life changes that you might be going through. And so just in that book, I feel like the book gave me more permission to take charge and take control and make my own choices over who I wanted to be and how I wanted to call myself. Because naming is a very powerful, it's a very powerful practice. Okay, I think that's the end of the story. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment box. Thank you for joining me on my crazy journey. Like, subscribe. Do not turn on notifications. Turn all the notifications off on your phone. It's horrible for your concentration, for your peace of mind, for your nervous system. So I'm not going to say to turn on notifications for my new videos. Don't do that. But do like and subscribe. And yeah, if you have any other questions, anything you want to hear me talk about, pop the comments in the comment box. And yeah, I encourage you to, is your name your true name? Or do you feel like there's another name out there for you that's more of your soul's name in this lifetime? It's something good to question. I think question everything. Question your name, question your last name, question everything. So this is my little parting advice. Bye.